Date with a Debut is recorded and produced on Awabakal Country, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and extend that to any First Nations people tuning in. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. On with the show. Welcome to Date with a Debut, a podcast about debut authors, their incredible books, and their journey to publication. If you're looking for a new author to discover or writing inspiration for your own story and you don't know where to start, this is the place to be. I'm Nick Wasiliev, host of the show, and I'm delighted to welcome another debut author in today's episode. If you enjoyed this show, jump online and give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review. It really helps the show out. If you also want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Wherever you are listening, thank you for listening to us and supporting the Australian book industry. You can also find any books mentioned in today's podcast down in the description. Today, I'm joined by Daniel Nour, an Egyptian-Australian writer and journalist. His work is featured in the New York Times, SBS Voices, Meanjin, Kill Your Darlings, Mascara Literary Review, The Big Issue, and Eureka Street, just to name a few. In 2021, he was awarded the Affirm Press Mentorship for Sweatshop Writers, and we're here today to talk about his debut book, How to Dodge Flying Sandals and Other Advice for Life, published by Affirm Press, which you can get a copy of right now down in the description. We will discuss some very mild spoilers, so I recommend you grab a copy now, or at least very soon. I started off by asking Dani about his writing experience up to this point, and also the journey of working under a mentorship. Daniel, welcome to Date with a Debut.
Oh, Nick, thank you so much for having me. I'm also proud to say that I'm talking to you from the lands of the Awabakal clan on Awabakal Country today, and I'm very privileged to be speaking to you from this unceded land.
It's been a pleasure. I'm really excited to chat with you about your book. And kind of before we dive in, I want to shout out. We were literally just talking about it before we started, but the cover, literally, like we're talking in like early mid-April, and the cover literally dropped today. Does it feel real now?
It did indeed. It does feel real now. There it is. I still have the stupor of kind of disbelief, because I think for other writers who will appreciate this process, the momentum of the publication cycle is really profound. You know, you start a series of copy edits about 3 months before it goes to print. So at most you have maybe 2 or 3 days to consider any changes to the final words before another version needs to be sent on. You know, I mean, it's pretty propulsive. And so now that it's finally printed, I kind of can't believe it. I wonder, can I still go back and tinker with that? Or I wonder if there are any ways I can improve those. But of course, they said to me the book has now gone to print, Daniel.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the eternal truth. It's like you've suddenly got to realize you've got to let go, and this baby is now going to go out and have a life of its own. And then suddenly you'll see it in the wild, and you'll be like, "Oh, there you are. You're still there." So
there you are.
It's a strange feeling. Yeah. Before we dive into the book, I actually think now's a good time to talk. I always love hearing about the journey to publication and the many different experiences that authors have to get there. And for you picked up a mentorship through Affirm Press, the Affirm Press mentorship for sweatshop writers. First of all, what was it, or what is it? And talk to me about how that experience how you use that experience to tell such a personal story.
Absolutely. It's also been an honor for me to have received the Affirm Press mentorship for sweatshop writers. So Sweatshop Western Sydney, or rather Sweatshop Literacy Movement, is a movement for diverse writers of color who work together on collaborations that improve the quality of their work. So what they do is they meet for mentorship sessions where our writing is reviewed, criticized, constructively edited, by our peers and collaborators, who include the founder, Michael Muhammad Ahmed, who's an award-winning writer himself and author of The Tribe and The Lebs, and general manager Winnie Dunn, who recently released her debut memoir, I think in the last 12 months, called Dirt Poor Islanders. So they put me forward. Muhammad said, listen, I think that you have the makings of a published author. I think he appreciated my drive, my creativity, and my love for writing, and most importantly, my willingness to receive and work with criticism. All writers have to receive criticism, and not to take it personally, and to recognize that this is a craft just as much as it is a vocation or a talent or any of those other kind of vaguely spiritual words. It is a craft, and you have to do it with a discipline and with certain methodologies. And I had to learn a lot of craftsmanship. I had to learn how to cut to the chase, how to tell a story within each chapter, so that it wasn't just a series of ramblings, but that each chapter had its own problem that it solved. And then to make that elegant, beautiful, and funny with motifs and metaphors and imagery, and then to keep it tight and concise and also moving, that took work. I think it helped that I had this journalism background, and I've worked in the industry, the Australian media, for about 15 years now. And I've written also op-eds and essays for Time Out Sydney and the New York Times and SBS Voices, may it rest in peace. And so all of that came together, I think, in a providential way. And here's a text message from a spam company for furniture, I'll have you know, that afforded me this wonderful chance, and I've been on that writing grind, if you like, for 2 years now, since I got the mentorship. And I was happy to sign a contract with them about 12 months ago. And then one thing after the other, one series of manuscript versions after the other, and here we are. Here's my bookmark. No, and Muhammad has always been one for platforming community voices, especially people of color, young people of color from Western Sydney. He did this really revolutionary thing with Sweatshop, where he would publish verbatim, more or less, the words of high schoolers, of kids. These are not just published authors with a track record in the arts. These are young kids who for the first time saw their words published in anthologies like this Little Red Thing and Winnie Dunn's Sweatshop Women series. Just regular, young people from the area, Nick, which is local lingo. I'll have I know you're in Newcastle. That's game changing. It's rare to find kind of artistic organizations that validate voices like that with something more than just an eye to the bottom line, which is sales. And also who don't just preach to the choir, who are not just talking to literary types from Sydney's inner west. Let me see if I can turn these text messages off here. But I think you understand what I mean, that he honors all of us in that way,
Yeah, it's like it's not done with that kind of the publishing background. It's like you're speaking the language and you're telling the stories of the area. That's the priority over how many books you're going to be able to sell. It's like a record. It's a record. It's a document, but it's also opportunity for a voice to be shared, to be expressed.
Yes, absolutely,
which is critical. It is good that you have this mentorship, particularly writing about your own personal story. And I kind of imagine, I'm just kind of thinking about it with my writer brain, that you had to straddle several elements here. You're putting your own personal history on the page here. How difficult was that? Because yes, you lived it, but it's also you're going to have to do the sort of editing of your own life. And when I think about what I'd write about if I was in your position, I just feel daunted by the prospect of having to translate that to the page. Talk me through that.
Absolutely. Well, something that they told us, and I believe, and have come to really believe, is that and when I say they, I mean the community at Sweatshop Western, or rather Sweatshop Literacy Movement, is that all writing is autofiction, or rather autobiographical fiction, which is a a genre that takes, I suppose, elements of one's life and using the craftsmanship of narrative conveys a story, employing the tools of metaphor, imagery, hyperbole, simile, and so forth, that isn't bound to the confines of journalism, right, or history, but is a narrative enterprise. Now, I believe that's also the case of journalism, history, and alleged memoir. I believe, on the basis of that theory, that everyone editorializes and makes selection, edits in such a way that the work is best and most poetically, most beautifully, most effectively, and even sometimes just most flatteringly conveyed, right? And so, yes, it was still quite scary and quite daunting because I don't live in a vacuum. I have family, a very close-knit community. I of course worry about how it will come across and what people will say. But again, Western sweatshop literacy movement. I keep calling the sweatshop Western Sydney because that's how I'm familiar with them. But another thing they said that has helped me with this is that you have to write as though you're dead, and that's not to be dramatic or maudlin or staunch, to try to be cool. It's really true. If you want to be effective as a writer and recognize that this is not about you, but that you are contributing an original contribution to culture. Again, an idea that I learned from them, from Michael Muhammad Ahmed. You have to detach. You have to have enough humility and courage to honor the work, honor the writing. Don't worry so much about yourself and how will this come across and how will that come across, because all great art, like anything worth reading, even, it requires that level of bravery. And I see that in all of my favorite writers, from something as prosaic as, say, Agatha Christie, to something as profound as Ocean Vuong, or Michael Muhammad Ahmed, or Winnie Dunn, or Cam Hafam, or any of the other writers of color that I enjoy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's such a poetic and great way to describe it. And I think, without further ado, let's talk about this book. Let's talk about how to dodge flying sandals and other advice for life.
Have you ever had to dodge sandals?
Have I ever had to dodge them?
Yeah.
Oh, probably. At some point in my life, I would have annoyed my parents enough that they would have thrown a sandal at me. I feel
what's your ethnic situation, Nick? You're Ukrainian?
German on my father's side.
So how to dodge flying clogs?
Clogs or bratwurst or
how to flying bratwurst? Say no more, my friend.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate you picked that up straight away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think it's a pretty common thing for kids to be corporally punished by their ethnic parents. And I have to say, for what it's worth, I didn't actually have to dodge sandals or shoes for that. I really didn't. My parents never hit me. They had other ways. My dad would give me a look, he'd give me a look. But the notion is still there.
Yeah, I get you. Give us the 1 minute pitch. Talk us through it. What is How to Dodge Flying Sandals and Other Advice for Life about? We're in the lift. We're going up.
It's my account of growing up not normal in Western Sydney. It's my failed attempt to come of age. And it also tells the story of a queer Egyptian Australian who wants to please their parents, their teacher, their professors and employers and community, and in the end kind of fails them all. But I think in a way wrangles wrangles a place for himself out of that failure.
Yeah, nailed it. Nailed the description. We've hit the floor we need to hit. And I think that last part that you mentioned there is a really good summary of about it's finding place or finding yourself in your own place. I love that you described this as an unreliable ethnic memoir, which just gave me a bit of a chuckle. And true to form, it's quirky, it's fun, it's got your sense of humor all through it, but it also highlights the real challenges you faced in your self-discovery journey and the discovery of yourself. Out of curiosity, how did your family respond to this book? Have they read it?
Well, Nick, as I've often said to my therapist, we have to choose our battles, I think. And then it's at that point usually that he'll nod and say, yeah, of course. He'll say, of course, Dal. And so I guess I'm hoping that you'll also say, of course, Dal. But Nick, it is very tricky for any person of color, certainly anyone in my community, to write something honest that isn't completely deferential and that isn't just a press release for the Egyptian community, that is also well received by them. I think the other thing is my parents' generation aren't very literary, they read the Bible. They didn't have fantastic English, and their access to literature was limited anyway, even in their own native tongue, maybe because of the lack of availability here in Sydney in the 80s and 90s, So the idea of fiction or short stories or essay, I don't know how useful that is for them if I'm going to be really pragmatic. And I don't think it needs to be useful for them. The biggest and most freeing thing for me has been to accept that it may not be their cup of tea.
That's fair. I think that's very fair. And I will say, though, it's in this book, though, you do give fantastic insights into growing up in that community. And, families are complicated. They're multifaceted. There's traditions, there's things that they hold value to. I mean, talk about the extended family and like how there's so many cousins and relatives that you lose track of so many of them.
I know. But Nick, I also just wanted to add one more thing, which is that I have written something that I hope is really good literature. I work very hard at this, and so what I've done is I've provided an intersectional and joyful and comical as well as satirical portrait of an Arab Australian narrative, and that's because I am quite a devoted member of the Egyptian community in New South Wales. I love our community, and I've been to Egypt 5 times, and I've been involved with Back to Your Roots style trips organized by the Egyptian embassy. And, I've been a real supporter and celebrator of that community. So to write this book, I have merged my experience as a journalist and an essayist, as well as a fiction writer and also stand-up comic. I did a bit of improv and stand-up comedy, and I still dabble in improv. So I think just as my life is intersectional, I think this book also draws on those different schools, so that it is not a piss take, of the Egyptian community. It is not to make any mockery. It's a satire, and I think in that satire there's also a lot of love, devotion, and praise,
Yeah, this actually feeds on quite nicely because I kind of wanted to preface for any listeners that yes, the subject matter can sound intense, but you need that contrast. And this book has a wicked sense of humor. It is hilarious. Like you talk about trying to pull off normal, which I think is just so like whatever the hell normal is, which I kind of also find funny. And that, the book is like, I love how like in the actual description of the book, like when you're trying to sell it, you have described it as, quote, loud and painfully awkward, conservative and very confused, especially about other boys.
Yeah.
Which is so true. Like, actually talk to me about that. Talk to me about the power of humor and the love that comes out of that, especially within this book.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was the Greeks like Aristotle and other playwrights from that country and thinkers who said that the use of comedy is just as instructive as tragedy, and that when plays were written that had some fantastic moral to equip the people about, say, I don't know, the danger of corruption or the dangers of power or what have you, they were very funny stories. They were very funny stories, and we see that in Shakespeare and all of these darkly comic accounts of human failure. Even something I think as tragic as, say, Romeo and Juliet has an absurd level of irony, like that she drank the poison while waiting for him, but that he didn't get around to it. That's kind of stupid, And so in like manner, this is a way of moving you that takes you by surprise. And I think that's another, element, or if you like, principle of comedy. What is a joke? It's a surprise. A joke is a surprise. It's when you catch someone off their guard, and that's what elicits this kind of like miracle of laughter, And I hope my book does that. I hope that I've nailed the Western Sydney voice of the author, of the protagonist, so well that I can seduce people into my jokes. And I think I've done that. I think it's pretty funny. So for me, it's the best way. I would much prefer to laugh than to cry. I mean, if I need to cry, I would also like to laugh.
That's a great quote, and I think another thing that really hooks you in addition to that humor, is there's a great story here. It's a story about self-discovery and finding where you are in the world. And at the time, not only are you growing up in this story, you're going through the wonders that is puberty. You're also contrasting with those experiences that you're having in
puberty. Yes,
with the.
Yes. It wasn't so wonderful, but I take your point. Yeah.
Is there a wonderful experience that is puberty? I don't actually know. I don't think.
That's right. Yeah.
But you're also at the same time having to contrast, the challenges of being within the challenges and positives of being both within the Australian community in Western Sydney, but also the Egyptian community in that space.
Yeah.
And contrast is a kind of key part when you're on that journey of self-discovery. Talk to me about that, because I feel like this is a really key part of a lot of the stories that take place within this book.
Absolutely, Nick. So I've tried to juxtapose, a few things, the contrast of those two worlds, and find the moments that they overlap. I guess there are a couple of chapters where that really happens. One that I enjoyed was I wrote a chapter about a play that I wrote for my Sunday school. It was for my youth group, actually. And it was about an Egyptian father whose daughter wants to marry out of the community, and she wants to marry this white guy called Trent. And so there's a scene, it's kind of a scene within a scene, where Trent's flip-flops are showing, and he's walking in like he's like an Anglo-looking guy, Bogan-looking guy, as it were. And the Egyptian father figure says, "So what do you know about our community?" And he says, "Oh, pyramids and molokhia," which is like a green soup. And he says, "Not just the food, you donkey," And he told her about how he told this kid about, you can't have sex before marriage, you can't touch her, and you have to come to church, and this kind of a thing. That for me is like a quintessential crossover. We have an old school community of conservative values trying to live in a pretty secular, progressive society. That is pretty fraught, and that's also something that happened to me in the end part of the book, where as I come out and come to terms with my sexuality, I have to buy an apartment and move out of house, or leave my parents' home. And in our community, that's also kind of a faux pas. You kind of wait until you're married. And so how my parents say, if you buy this sad apartment, you'll bring my head down with shame, and why this waste of money? That's the subtext. Those are a couple of moments where those two worlds collide.
And and in there it comes the you figuring out yourself, and it's good that you're talking about, you kind of mention your journey in terms near the end of the book, when you come out and you kind of come to terms with your own sexuality. Because I wanted to shout out and contrast two particular stories, and that trying to arrange a marriage for you, and then also kind of the roommate story. Like you've been staying with this roommate for 5 years, and your family's like, it's a great friendship, and they're the best of friends, and oh yeah, there's maybe there's something going on there, but they think that. And in a sense, as well, the journey.
Delulu, denial is not a river, just a river in Egypt.
And in a sense, as well, the journey of your queer identity feels like an interesting element to hone in on a little bit at the end of this book, because though of course it's not the only part where you do feel at odds with all these contrasts. You did a great piece on the Griffith Review, I recall, where you were talking. I think then the main subject was talking about white queer identity and how ethnic identity kind of gets shafted to the side in a mainstream sense. And you had some great quotes or parts of the article where you talk about how queer Arab Muslims and Christians who are in your friendship groups, like they have to navigate their faith, they have to navigate their sexuality, and they have to navigate family dynamics in quite subtle ways. And I kind of was like, it felt like this book was actually just the natural expansion on that, which was such an interesting part. Talk to me about that navigation, because I don't want to, it's not, I feel like it's overly simplistic, but it is a crux of this book. And I'm glad you kind of expanded on it a little bit more, because in a way, the queer identity that you have come to terms with is kind of one of the coal faces of where these elements really clash. It's one key area and key part of your own self-discovery.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. And I really appreciate you reading that that story on the Griffith Review. What I said there in a nutshell, which I agree with you, is a sentiment that is echoed throughout the book, is that for queer people of color, a black and white, if you like, or a conventional idea of coming out does not apply. And despite me having said that when I come out at the end of the book earlier in this interview, that's not actually exactly a play-by-play of how it happened. What happened was I let certain people in, and I progressively became more and more comfortable with claiming my territory and my space. Like, as it happens now, I live with my partner. We have 2 kids who are biologically dogs. They are kids of the genus canine. And that was itself the result of many months and even years of therapy and of discussion and of dating, so it wasn't what I think is often misunderstood to be the simple choice to come out and then live your life with your chosen family and reject the claims of your biological family. Because for me, I still, like so many other queer people of color, have a very strong connection with my immediate family. I visit them often. I want to take care of them in their old age. So the idea of just kind of washing my hands of any responsibility doesn't apply. And what that means is I have to carefully navigate what they know, or rather what they're exposed to, and what I withhold, I don't, even though I'm pretty out there on my social media, I don't ever really talk so much at this stage of my life about my boyfriend or what we got up to at the weekend. I certainly wouldn't say, look how sexy he looks here. I wouldn't do that, because that's not appropriate for my context, And I think that's the case for many queer people of color. We just don't have these very frank and open conversations with our parents or our immediate family. And that's not because we're cowards. It's not because we're in denial. It's because to come out, you have to have a safe place to land. And we simply often don't have that. Instead, we create spaces where we feel comfortable and safe, and we deliberately escape and inhabit them as much as possible. And in the meantime, there's a lot of negotiation that has to happen,
Yeah, no, I get you. What I think personally, what I loved about this, it was that this book gave me the opportunity to understand a little more, which was so valuable. It's so nice it kind of feels like such a cliche to say you're walking a mile in someone else's shoes, but considering this as more stories and more voices that we want to see more of. We want to see that record. We want to see those books out there. It's a great. What's so good was that you give us that chance to walk in your shoes a bit. And I feel like this is actually kind of a good place to wrap up the actual discussion of the book, because you've sat with these themes and these elements and these contrasts, in your story and in your growth. And, it's hard to take pause, at that time, because you're living it. You're in the midst of it. You're kind of dealing with it day in, day out. And I feel like one of the great benefits of writing a book is that putting it on the page in that regard can be a great moment of reflection, of a chance to reanalyze, recontextualize, look at new moments in different ways. What did this book teach you?
That's deep. What did this book teach me? It taught me a couple of things. The first is how much control and power I have about the narrative that I want to convey. Not just in the book, but in the interactions I have surrounding it. And indeed, how I convey myself in other contexts. Professionally, I work a day job in journalism, and I have a varied network of friends. How much do I want to say, and to whom do I want to say it, is an evolving experience for me. I don't have to tell everyone everything at all times. So that has been really liberating, actually, and quite empowering. It applies to my immediate family. It applies to any network of friends or anyone, in fact, that I'm talking to. And it also applies to the book, because I think you can get into hot water claiming to know something that you really aren't that well versed in. It could be another culture. It could be an element of your experience that you're still working out. For example, I have a lot of stuff in the book about religion, and there is still religious shame and trauma even in my life, and I think a lot of queer people of color have that. So I'm probably not going to get up here and make some big didactic claim about how you can have God and you can have your sexuality and it can be great. Like, I believe that, but it's not as simple as that. It's not black and white, and therefore I go to I try not to say too much about that, because I don't think that's something that people can really glean from my journey. I guess the bottom line is I realize more and more that I can write not because I want necessarily to reflect people's understanding of things or be some kind of instructive mirror, but because writing can be a doorway. It can be a portal to someone else's world. And I hope that in this book that you just escape. I want you to escape. I want you to be taken. I want you to be taken. I want you to feel like you can trust me to give you the joy, the pleasure, the thrill, the feelings that come with being in someone else's sandals. That's what I hope.
It definitely comes through, and you definitely get us through in that journey. And thank you. This book has been such a joy to examine and dissect. Out of curiosity, what's next? Will you write again?
Definitely, Nick. I'm actually, having just put the thing to bed, I'm already beginning to dream, first of all, about a good nap, but secondly, about what might become of it. What could I do with these stories? Because it is a series of short stories written kind of in a how-to style, how to die, how to get married, how to date women, how to date men, how to succeed academically, and so forth. I wonder, could there be a play in each of them? Could it be a TV series? That's where I'm at the moment. I'm thinking of what might become of it.
That's exciting. Well, whatever direction it goes, I am so excited to hear more about it, because we need more of these amazing stories out there. And you should be super proud of this book. You should be. It's a great book.
Oh, thank you, Nick. Yeah, and I hope everyone can get their hands on it for a good laugh. I really put my heart and soul into it, so I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk about it.
We're now at the part of the show where we come to a rapid fire part of the date. I just literally give you a bunch of questions and you give me the first answer that comes to your head. Are you ready, Dani?
Absolutely.
Be terrified. No, I'm kidding. First up, what is your favorite book that you have read in the last 12 months?
My favorite book, maybe just a little over 12 months, I hope you'll allow it, Nick, is Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon. I love that book. It is not a funny book. It is not a lot, but it is. It's not a sad one either. It has this incredibly musical, artistic ending that you kind of don't see coming. And as well as that, it's just a fantastic pace and a really immersive world of a young African American guy who goes from the Midwest to the South to rediscover his roots. It's a wild book.
Oh, I've heard so much about that book. I haven't had the chance to read it. Just with the
it's can I just say it's one of her, because she's known to write these really heavy, intense novels. It's one of her easier books. You can fly through it in a couple of days. Song of Solomon. It's much lighter than The Bluest Eye or any of these other kind of tragedies she's written, like A Mercy or anything like that. You should get into it.
Oh, absolutely. What's your favorite debut novel that you've ever read? So I'm talking across your entire life. Is there a book of a debut that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I do think that would be on Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I don't know that I can write like that, or that's my wheelhouse, which is not just to say that he's very gifted, but that kind of genre of writing is a little too poetic for me, actually. But in going with it, it was so satisfying. What it is a series of images that very imagistic writing that comes together in a very gratifying way at the end. Again, with the use of like dreamscapes and kind of hallucinatory memories. It's again a really wild book, but very moving. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love descriptive stuff. And also kind of the one, like, there is an element of you that's like, wow, this book is so beautiful and amazing. But then there's also a part of you that's like, you did that first time round? Are you kidding me?
Son of a bitch.
Oh my God. Do you have a favorite word?
Well, I like the phrase white nonsense, because it's very, very versatile. For example, when I see someone in Birkenstocks in Newtown, I'll say that's some white nonsense right there.
I like that.
White nonsense. Or like, oh, I've cut sugar from my diet. I say, well, the first thing I say is, oh, good for you. That's really admirable. But then later,
when you're at home and you can fully let loose.
From white nonsense.
Love some white nonsense. I might have to start using that.
Yeah.
You've published a lot of you've been published in a lot of journals, and you've done a lot of work in that space. What would be a piece of writing advice off the back of kind of all of that talk about mentorship and experience for anyone listening who is like, how do I get published in the Group Review? How do I get published in Eureka or anything like that?
If you keep a journal, then the transition between your thoughts on the page to something on a website or in, one of these lofty, houses of literature, it's not so big. But if it's all in your head, then it does feel like this gargantuan task and you kind of never get around to it. So write often, and keep a journal. Think about not just what happened to you in a day, but how you synthesize it and how you make sense of it and how it accords with your belief system or lack thereof. Write with curiosity for yourself, and you'll realize that actually you have a lot to say.
That is a fantastic answer. You can become a writer by writing.
Yeah.
There is no other way. That's the truth. You've mentioned that you have 2 children. Two children who are in fact part of a critical part of the creative process. Tell me how important your children are.
Okay. Also, Baba. So he's fully horizontal right now, actually. So I'm not sure, but let me show you. Ozzy, come on.
As poor Otto fallen asleep.
Hello, Mister. Hello, Mister Man.
Oh,
Hello,
beautiful.
Baba. This is Otto, the mini schnauzer. He's 8 months old, and yeah, it's such a privilege to have a son and to know that my bloodline will continue. What I would say is I'm already training him in the family business of finding and eating snacks, finding treats, so he gets it. But he's a good boy, and I think the love that you get from these very innocent and kind of pure animals is far better than that you get from humans, because they're without guile, without deceit. And so I find that, like, it just gives me a lot of joy. Also, just having him around helps me to know that I have to get up and go for a walk, because if I don't, then he'll go crazy and it's not a good thing. So it just gives me structure. He keeps me healthy. And Lila, his sister, who's a Westie Terrier, my partner Carson's dog, is like the best person to have a nap with ever.
Yes, dogs called Lila. They're very good to have a nap with.
Yeah, yours is called Lila, right?
Yeah, my dog's called Lila as well, which is very cute. She's actually passed out, like, beyond dead right now. I've just noticed how knackered she is. She's got her full donut going on. Do you know what? It actually makes reference to a conversation I had. I did like a podcast at the Newcastle Writers Festival last year. We had a 94-year-old author, debut author, and I asked like advice, and she said you have to have a really good relationship with your cat. Which I thought was the best advice ever. And it kind of leads into this point that you were saying. It's like, because her cat always had a spot.
Yes.
They would go there. They would by her side when she was writing, and like became her writing buddy.
Yes.
And it's like there's a permission, and there's, because you're getting so much unconditional love from this other animal, there's really a permission for you to be yourself, and also a permission for you to, focus your energies there, because they're there with you. And they love you.
I know. I wish I had him during the pandemic, because a lot of the lockdown in Sydney, both the first and second lockdowns, I think sometime between like late 2020 and 21, I'm not sure. But I was alone. I lived in an apartment by myself. And if I had him, I feel like I would have been in a better place. But we have each other now, Otti. You're my fur prisoner and you can't escape.
I love it. I think it's really critical as well. We'll kind of talk a little bit about, having more ethnic voices out there in the discourse, in discussion. Which is kind of one of the reasons why I was drawn to your book in the first place for the podcast. And there's a growing voice out there. I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me is Omar Seiko.
Yeah.
That's the first one that comes to mind to me. Which other authors would you recommend listeners check out?
I would recommend that you go to Shirley Lee's Funny Ethnics, which was also dropped by Affirm Press about 12 months ago. It's a very sharp and very wry take on growing up in Western Sydney, the daughter of Vietnamese migrants. Shirley is without maudlin sentimentality. She's completely frank, and that is very refreshing. So she has a fantastic voice. I also like Winnie Dunn's Dirt Poor Islanders. That I believe was with Hachette, and that dropped again about 12 months. Actually, a bit later than that. I think probably about 6 months ago now. And what you have in Winnie's writing is, I think, the first novel by a Tongan Australian, first autobiographical novel by a Tongan Australian, and a very sweet, vibrant. It's actually quite bittersweet. Very. It's quite funny, But it's just it's the meaning of family. I think that's for me what Winnie's novel is about. It's the significance of family and how we navigate their grip on us and what it means to know where you come from. I think that for me is she goes back to Tonga in that novel, and it's drawn so searingly and so heart-achingly that it takes you there to the island, and to the land, the landmarks of Tonga and the cultural inheritance of Tonga and this matronly figure of her grandmother. It's a powerful novel, and as well as that, she grapples with the meaning of the death of her own mother. I think all novels also try to answer a question. And I think Winnie's is very much about that, the idea of a mother and what that means.
I'm so glad you're shouting out Winnie, because I tried to get her on the show last year, and unfortunately, due to scheduling and everything, it didn't go ahead. But her book, I did get the chance to get a skim read of Dirt Poor Islanders, and yes, it's absolutely stunning, really, really good.
I would suggest that everyone should read Michael Muhammad Ahmed's trilogy of novels. The Tribe, The Lebs, and The Other Half of You, which track they work together to form a life. Really, it's the account of his protagonist Benny Adam and what it means for him to have grown up at Punchbowl Boys High School, what it means for him to have grown up poor in an Alawite family in Alexandria in Sydney, in a townhouse there, and then to make his way through to adulthood, to have his own identity, to detach from his family with their extremely high expectations of him regarding marriage and career and so forth, and to make his own way as a writer, as an artist. It's the Tribe is my favorite of the three, but he's just this unique voice in Australian literature, and all of the awards that he's won, they're completely deserved. You see the power of very tightly conceived and disciplined craftsmanship in his work, and especially I think in The Tribe.
Fantastic, and it's a trilogy as well, so readers can go
Lord of the Rings,
deep dive.
That's right.
Yeah. Last question. Are you happy?
Well, I guess it's a deep podcast. Nick, I am happy, but I've also learned. Oh no, I am happy. I'm a happy guy, and I'm content with my life. I also think, if I can also say that there's something about contentment which allows you to ride the waves of the, let's say, the shonkier times of one's life.
You can't swear in this podcast. You can't say shit.
But I mean, just the tricky thing is in the demands of life, especially living in Sydney, which is a demanding city. It's so easy sometimes to be on that kind of that treadmill of work and obligation that you have to remind yourself to stop and be in the present and take joy. So I try to meditate and I try to pray, and I think those things have really helped me.
And it's so good that you have two sons who also are extremely good at keeping you in the present as well. I think that's one of the best parts about having dogs. They're very good at being in the moment.
Kids, am I right? Kids, they grow up so
I know. Dale, it's been so much fun chatting to you. And for all of our listeners, go and grab yourself a copy of How to Dodge Flying Sandals and Other Advice for Life. It'll be at the time when we're recording, it's about to come out, but by the time you're listening, it is out. It'll be out in the world.
Fabulous. End of May. You can grab it anywhere good books are sold, or you can also just look up How to Dodge Flying Sandals and Other Advice for Life.
It's a fantastic book. It's published by Affirm Press. Dani, thank you so much for coming on the pod. It's been a pleasure.
Nick, you are a pro. I'm so grateful for this. And I really hope you all enjoy this book.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Date with a Debut, and for listening to the Words and Nerds channel. You can buy all books mentioned in today's episode down in the description box, and if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review, leave us 5 stars or a thumbs up. It really helps the show out. If you want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Catch you soon! Date with a Debut is a Words and Nerds and Breathe Art podcast co-production.